When we talk about not letting prayer slip away, we first have to understand what prayer actually is. Too many people reduce it to a routine, something to check off a list, something to perform because we've been told we should. But real prayer, is the lifeline of the soul. It is the thread that connects you to the one who created you, who sustains you, who knows you more deeply than you will ever know yourself. And when that thread is firm, when that connection is alive, you move through life with a sense of stability and clarity that nothing else can give. But when that lifeline weakens, when it starts to fray because we've neglected it, ignored it, or drowned it beneath the noise of daily life, we start to feel it long before we notice it. Something feels off. We feel untethered, restless, pulled in 100 directions but grounded in none. We try to compensate more productivity, more entertainment, more distractions, but nothing fills the emptiness of a heart that has gone too long without speaking to its Lord. Prayer anchors your identity in a world that constantly tries to reshape it. Every day you are bombarded with messages telling you who you should be, what you should want, how you should feel, and where you should find your worth. And the danger is not that you will consciously accept those messages, but that you will subconsciously absorb them when your heart is not rooted in remembrance. Prayer protects you from that. It returns you to who you truly are, a servant of the most merciful, a soul on a journey, a human being created with purpose and dignity. When you stand in prayer, you are reminded that your value is not measured by likes, numbers, accomplishments, or the validation of people. It is measured by the sincerity of your heart and the intimacy of your connection with God. You see, without that intentional return, without that pause to realign yourself with the one who guides you, you begin to drift. And drifting is dangerous not because it feels dramatic, but because it feels comfortable. You don't notice how far you've gone until you look back and realize you've lost the very center of your life. Prayer keeps you from that drift. It pulls you back before you get too far. It wakes you up before you fall asleep spiritually. And the remarkable thing is that prayer doesn't simply benefit your spiritual life. It impacts every part of who you are. When your heart is settled, your mind becomes clearer. When your priorities are aligned, your decisions become wiser. When your soul is nourished, your relationships become healthier. Prayer gives you a sense of balance in a world that thrives on imbalance. It is that quiet moment where the chaos of the world fades and the reality of God's presence takes its place. And that moment, repeated throughout your day, shapes the person you become. But the truth is, prayer doesn't slip away in one moment. It slips away gradually. It slips away when we delay it once, then again, until delay becomes habit. It slips away when we let our phones invade every empty space in our lives, leaving no room for silence or reflection. It slips away when we assume that we'll return to it when life slows down, not realizing that life will only speed up if prayer is not part of it. You have to guard it, you have to fight for it, because you are living in a time where attention is the most valuable currency, and everything around you is designed to steal it. Prayer demands your attention, but not to take something from you, to give something to you, to replenish you, to remind you, to reshape you. And yes, there will be days when prayer feels heavy, days when you are tired, distracted, overwhelmed, or uninspired. But prayer is not only for the days when you feel strong. It is for the days when you feel lost, when you feel numb, when you feel like you're slipping, especially then, because prayer is not about presenting a perfect version of yourself to God. It's about presenting the truth of yourself, the weak moments, the confused moments, the moments where you don't have the answers. Those moments are where transformation begins. If you truly understood the gift that prayer is, you would run to it instead of from it. You would protect it from the intrusions of your schedule, the way you protect the things most precious to you. You would see it not as an obligation but as an honor. An honor to stand before the one who hears you before you speak, who knows you before you explain, who forgives you before you ask, and who has never turned away a heart that has turned toward him. And this is why you can't let prayer slip away. Not because missing it makes you bad, not because forgetting it makes you weak, but because without it, you're trying to navigate life without the very source of strength that was meant to sustain you. Prayer is what steadies your steps, clears your vision, and brings meaning back into every part of your existence. It is what keeps your heart alive when the world around you tries to numb it. If you hold on to prayer, truly hold on to it, you will find that everything else begins to fall into place, not because life becomes easier, but because your heart becomes stronger. And a strong heart can withstand anything. So don't let this lifeline slip through your fingers. Hold on to it, return to it, rebuild it if you've lost it. Your soul is waiting for you to reconnect with the one who has never stopped waiting for you. Because when prayer lives in your heart, everything else comes alive with it. When we speak about prayer slipping away, we have to be honest about one of the greatest threats to our spiritual life today: distraction. Not sin in the dramatic sense, not rebellion, not disbelief. Just simple, quiet, constant distraction. It's subtle, it feels harmless, but distraction is the thief that steals your devotion without ever raising its voice. We live in a world where attention is constantly under attack. Every moment is filled with notifications, messages, noise, obligations, entertainment, and endless demands pulling us in every direction. And what makes this so dangerous is that nothing seems wrong on the surface. You're not abandoning prayer because you stopped believing. You're not turning away because you lost faith. You're simply busy, tired, stretched thin, overwhelmed, or caught up in the next thing on your list. And yet, slowly, gradually, almost without realizing it, the conversation between you and your Lord becomes less frequent. The quiet of your heart becomes crowded. The moments that once belonged to prayer now belong to everything else. Distraction doesn't come with alarms or warnings. It comes softly. It comes wrapped in normal life. You tell yourself you'll pray in 5 minutes, then 20 minutes, then an hour. You tell yourself you'll reconnect when the day slows down, but the day never slows down. You plan to pray with presence, but when you finally stand to pray, your mind is still running, your thoughts racing, your heart somewhere else entirely. And you wonder why the prayer feels empty, when the truth is that your attention was spent long before you entered it. If you think about it, so many people today are exhausted without knowing why. They're mentally drained, emotionally burned out, spiritually numb, not because they're doing too much, but because their asterisk never still asterisk. Their hearts have forgotten what silence feels like. Their souls have forgotten what focus feels like. Distraction has taken so much from them that even when they want to return to prayer, they find themselves restless, unable to settle, unable to concentrate. And this is exactly why distraction is so dangerous. It doesn't only pull you away from prayer. It makes prayer harder when you finally come back. We often underestimate how deeply our daily habits affect our spiritual state. What you give your attention to shapes your heart. What you constantly look at shapes your thoughts. What you constantly listen to molds your inner world. And if your attention is scattered all day, if your thoughts are fragmented, if your heart is pulled in 100 directions, how can you expect to stand in front of God with presence, with softness, with focus? Prayer requires a heart that can be still, but stillness cannot exist in a life filled with noise. This is not about blaming yourself. It's about recognizing the climate you're living in. You're in a time where distraction is not accidental, it's engineered. Companies invest millions to keep you scrolling, clicking, watching, consuming. Your time is valuable. Your focus is valuable. Your peace is valuable. And the world around you is competing for those things every waking moment. If you don't guard your attention intentionally, It will be taken from you effortlessly. Prayer is the antidote to this world of distraction. It is the one place where the heart finds refuge from everything pulling at it. But the very thing meant to protect you is the first thing distraction tries to take away. Because if distraction can weaken your prayer, it can weaken everything else connected to it. Your clarity, your discipline, your peace, your sense of purpose. When prayer fades, confusion rises. When prayer slips, stress increases. When prayer becomes inconsistent, temptation becomes louder. This isn't coincidence, this is spiritual truth. And the thing about distraction is that it often masks itself as productivity. You tell yourself you're busy with good things. You're working, studying, helping, planning, organizing. And yes, those things matter. But if all the good things push aside the best thing, something is wrong. If every commitment gets a place in your schedule, except the one commitment that nourishes your soul, then you're building a life where everything is in its place except your heart. Distraction wins the moment you stop noticing it. That's why you must become aware, not paranoid, but aware. Aware of what steals your time. Aware of what drains your energy. Aware of what fills your mind with noise. Aware of how quickly your heart turns toward the world and away from remembrance. Awareness is the first step in reclaiming your focus, because when you push back against distraction, even in small ways, you start to feel the difference immediately. When you silence the noise, the heart breathes again. When you carve out moments for God, your mind becomes calmer. When you give your attention purpose instead of letting it scatter, your life becomes more centered. And when you return to prayer with a mind that's not drowning in distractions, the beauty of prayer returns to you. It's not about perfection. It's about protecting the spaces that matter. It's about choosing, even in a world full of noise, to create moments where your heart turns fully toward its Lord. Every act of focus is an act of devotion. Every time you resist distraction, you strengthen your connection to the one who deserves your undivided heart. Distraction may be the enemy of devotion, but intentionality is its cure. And when you choose prayer over noise, presence over chaos, stillness over scrolling, you are choosing the health of your soul. You are choosing clarity over confusion. You are choosing God over the world, and a heart that chooses God never loses its way. Hold on to that choice. Only then will everything else fall back into its rightful place. When we talk about prayer as a source of clarity and purpose, we're really talking about something much deeper than a practice or a routine. We're talking about the very thing that orients your heart when everything around you pulls in different directions. Because without prayer, consistent, sincere, grounding prayer, you begin to lose sight of what your life is truly about. You start reacting to life instead of intentionally moving through it. You start getting caught in the currents of stress, distractions, pressure, expectations, and emotions without an anchor to steady you. And the reality is, clarity doesn't just fall into your lap. Purpose doesn't just appear in your mind one morning. Meaning doesn't just wake up inside of you uninvited. All of these things grow from a heart that regularly returns to God, a heart that is trained to pause, to reconnect, to realign, to listen. Prayer teaches you to do that. Prayer is the moment you step back from the noise of the world and step into the presence of the one who sees the entire picture when you see only fragments. When you consistently pray, your heart becomes accustomed to reflection. You begin to think before you act, pause before you speak, consider before you rush into things. Prayer disciplines your inner world. It nurtures the kind of self-awareness that makes spiritual, emotional, and even practical clarity possible. Someone who prays with presence doesn't live blindly. They don't chase every impulse. They don't crumble under every stress. They don't surrender to confusion the moment it appears. Why? Because they've trained their heart to return to a stable source of guidance every single day. Think for a moment about how many decisions you make in a week. Some small, some big, some life changing, some routine, some you barely notice. And each decision, even the small ones, shapes who you are becoming. But how many of those decisions are driven by pressure, or fear, or habit, or other people's expectations instead of grounded clarity? That's what prayer protects you from. It gives you space to breathe spiritually, to think with a clear heart, to make choices that reflect your values instead of your impulses. And so many people today feel overwhelmed not because they have too much to do, but because they don't have a clear sense of direction. They're walking in circles, doing more but feeling less fulfilled, achieving more but feeling less at peace. It's not productivity they're missing, it's clarity. And clarity is a gift that only comes from God, a gift that is unlocked when the heart consistently turns toward Him. When you pray, you are not just fulfilling an obligation. You're renewing your compass. You're reminding yourself of who you are, what really matters, and who is truly in control. Prayer brings your priorities back into focus. It forces you to slow down, to acknowledge your limits, to recognize that you're not carrying life alone even if it feels like you are. That humility creates room for clarity, because clarity is not born from pride, it's born from surrender. And purpose, real purpose, is found in that same space. You begin to realize that purpose is not something distant that you chase. It's something that grows within you when your life is anchored in the one who gave you your existence. A person disconnected from prayer may still succeed in worldly terms, but they will always feel a sense of incompleteness. They will achieve but feel empty. They will gather but feel insecure. They will move but feel directionless. But someone who prays consistently carries a different kind of strength. Their purpose is not defined by what they collect or accomplish. It is defined by their relationship with God and the meaning they bring into every situation because of that relationship. And purpose doesn't always appear as some grand mission. Sometimes it's simply waking up with a heart that knows why it exists. Sometimes it's the ability to endure hardship with dignity. Sometimes it's the wisdom to make the right choice when you're confused. Sometimes it's finding the courage to change, the patience to wait, or the humility to let go. Prayer gives you that. It shapes your inner life in ways you may not even recognize until you look back and realize how much God was guiding you through moments you thought you survived alone. But consistency is the key. Sporadic prayer brings comfort, yes. Occasional prayer brings relief, yes. But consistent prayer brings transformation. The kind of transformation that shifts how you think, how you feel, how you process life, how you respond to challenges, how you see the world. Prayer is not meant to be an emergency button. It's meant to be a daily nourishment. The more consistent your prayer is, the more stable your inner world becomes. And the more stable your inner world is, the clearer your purpose becomes. The truth is, life will always demand things from you. People will always expect things from you. Circumstances will always shift beneath your feet. You will have moments where you feel strong, and moments where you feel lost. Moments where you feel inspired, and moments where you feel empty. But if prayer is consistent, your purpose remains consistent even when your emotions aren't. Your clarity remains intact even when your surroundings are chaotic. Your direction remains steady even when life is unpredictable. And this is why you cannot allow prayer to slip away. Because when it goes, everything connected to it starts to weaken. But when it stays, when it becomes part of the rhythm of your life, you find that clarity grows where confusion once lived, and purpose shines where uncertainty once lingered. Hold onto that gift, nurture it, protect it, because a heart connected to its Lord never walks without direction. When we speak about prayer, many people think of it as a soft act, a quiet moment, something gentle and peaceful. And yes, prayer brings peace, but it is not merely a soothing practice. It is an act of strength. It is a form of spiritual warfare. It is the shield of the believer, the armor of the heart, the weapon that protects you from the forces, seen and unseen, that are constantly trying to pull you away from God. Prayer is not a sign of weakness. It is the declaration that you refuse to walk through this life unarmed. Because whether you realize it or not, you are always in a struggle. Not with people, not with circumstances, not with situations, but with the internal and external forces that try to cloud your mind, weaken your heart, and separate you from the one who gives your life meaning. Every day you are confronted with temptations, doubts, whispers, distractions, desires, fears, anxieties, and emotional storms that aim to chip away at your spiritual resolve. If you don't equip yourself, you become vulnerable, you become exposed, you become spiritually unprotected. That is why prayer is essential, not optional, essential. Prayer strengthens you in ways you cannot always see, but you feel it in your endurance, your patience, your ability to resist what once overpowered you. When you pray, you are not running from life, you are preparing for it. You are not escaping your problems, you are gathering the strength to confront them. You are not avoiding your challenges, you are aligning yourself with the source of courage and guidance that gives you victory over them. And, in a world that constantly pushes you toward exhaustion and confusion, prayer becomes your refuge and your fortress. Imagine going into battle without armor, without a shield, without a strategy. You would never do that. Yet, every day, many people walk into their emotional battles, their spiritual challenges, their moral tests without prayer, and then wonder why they feel defeated. Wonder why their resolve is weak. Wonder why their heart is unsettled. Wonder why they fall into cycles they promised they would break. Prayer is not merely communication, it is protection. It forms a barrier around you that the world cannot break unless you let it. It plants strength inside you that you may not even realize is there until life tests it. It trains your soul to stand firm when everything is pushing you to fall. And the beautiful thing is that prayer doesn't require you to be strong before you start. It creates the strength within you. You come to prayer overwhelmed and you leave calmer. You come to prayer confused and you leave clearer. You come to prayer weak and you leave fortified. You come to prayer empty and you leave filled. That is the power of turning to God. He does not require perfection. He simply asks for sincerity. But prayer as warfare also means consistency. You cannot fight a daily battle with occasional effort. You cannot face constant spiritual attacks with inconsistent devotion. Imagine a soldier who only trains once in a while, or only prepares when he feels inspired. He would never survive. Similarly, prayer cannot be something you reach for only in moments of desperation. It has to be a constant part of your life because the struggle is constant, and sometimes the battle isn't dramatic. Sometimes the battle is simply the quiet erosion of your discipline, the gradual weakening of your resolve, the slow fading of your motivation, the subtle rise of old habits, the gentle whisper that tells you you can pray later, you're too tired, you're too busy, you're not good enough to stand before God. These are the moments where prayer is most powerful, because when you overcome that inner resistance, you are not just praying. You are defeating the very forces trying to distance you from your Lord. Every time you stand to pray when your heart doesn't feel ready, you are winning a victory over your lower self. Every time you pray, even when you are tired or distracted, you are strengthening your soul. Every time you refuse to let laziness or excuses silence your prayer, you are proclaiming that your spiritual life matters more than your comfort. And you will notice something remarkable. The more you pray, the stronger you become, not only in worship, but in every aspect of your life. You handle hardship with more patience. You respond to people with more wisdom. You resist temptations with more firmness. You recover from emotional wounds with more resilience. Prayer doesn't remove the challenges from your life. It transforms you so that the challenges cannot break you. This is why those who pray consistently carry a certain calmness within them, a certain strength, a certain stability. Because prayer builds an inner world that the external world cannot shake. People may not see the battles you are fighting, but they will see the strength that prayer places inside you. And that strength is not from you. It is from the one who hears you. Prayer also reminds you that you are never alone in your struggles. You don't have to face the storms of life with human strength alone. You have a Lord who listens, who responds, who supports you, who guides you, who strengthens you in ways no human hand can. You have a Lord who invites you to call upon him, not because he needs you, but because you need him. And that realization itself is empowering. So when life becomes heavy, when your heart becomes tired, when your faith feels tested, when your motivation slips, don't walk away from prayer. Walk toward it, even if your steps are slow, even if your voice is weak, even if your mind is scattered. Because every step you take toward prayer is a step away from the forces that want to break you. And that is why you cannot allow prayer to slip away. Because prayer is not merely what you do. It is what makes you strong enough to face everything that tries to undo you. Hold on to it, protect it, fight for it, because a heart armed with prayer is a heart that cannot be conquered. When we talk about holding on to prayer and not letting it slip away, one of the most important truths we have to face is that your life is shaped not by the big moments, but by the small daily habits you repeat without even realizing it. We often imagine transformation as something dramatic, a turning point, a breakthrough, a moment of inspiration that changes everything. But in reality, real change is built quietly, consistently, through the choices you make every single day. And prayer, more than anything else, is a habit that shapes the direction of your entire life. Every habit you build is like a seed you plant. Some seeds grow into trees that shade you, protect you, nourish you. Others grow into weeds that take over your heart, draining your time, your energy, your focus. And the question is not whether you're planting seeds every single day you are. The real question is, what kind of seeds are you planting? Because what you do repeatedly becomes who you are. Your habits create momentum, and momentum is powerful. It can carry you toward God or pull you quietly away from him. Prayer is the kind of habit that builds the soul. It doesn't just settle your heart in the moment. It reshapes your inner world over time. When you pray consistently, even when you're tired, even when you're distracted, even when life feels overwhelming, you are training your heart to remember its purpose. You are strengthening your discipline. You are building a spiritual foundation that cannot be shaken by stress, by people, by circumstances, or even by your own weaknesses. That's the beauty of daily habits. They bypass your fluctuating emotions and anchor you in something steadier. We often think we need motivation to pray. We wait for inspiration. We wait for the right moment. We wait until we feel ready. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes, and if your spiritual life depends on how you feel, then it will always remain inconsistent. You need habits because habits carry you when motivation fails you. Habits carry you through the days when your heart is heavy, when your mind is cloudy, when your energy is low. Habits keep the door between you and God open, even when you don't have the strength to open it widely. And this is why small, consistent acts of worship are so powerful, because they rewire your heart little by little. They soften you, they purify you, they keep the connection with God alive even when life tries to bury it. Don't underestimate the impact of praying on time, or setting aside 2 minutes to remember God, or pausing to make a sincere dua during your day. These moments don't feel dramatic, but they shape the condition of your soul over time. They build spiritual muscle. And the opposite is also true. The habits you neglect, the ones you brush aside, the ones you tell yourself you'll return to later, those shape you too. Every time you postpone prayer, you strengthen the habit of delay. Every time you rush through prayer without focus, you strengthen the habit of inattentiveness. Every time you choose distraction over devotion, you strengthen the habit of forgetting. And soon, without realizing it, the habits you built unintentionally start to lead your life in a direction you never wanted. That is why consistency in prayer is not simply about performing a task. It's about shaping your spiritual identity. When prayer becomes part of the rhythm of your life, it becomes easier to stay connected, easier to stay grounded, easier to stay focused on what really matters. Prayer breaks the momentum of heedlessness. It interrupts the flow of distraction. It pulls you back when you're drifting. And it builds within you the discipline you need to live with purpose, not passiveness. You see, every meaningful pursuit in life requires discipline, whether it's career growth, health, education, or relationships. No one becomes great at anything by doing it occasionally, and your relationship with God is no different. Consistency is the quiet, steady force that turns ordinary believers into people of strength, focus, and depth. It's not about praying perfectly. It's about praying regularly enough that your heart stays alive, and this consistency impacts everything else. When your prayer life is stable, your emotional life becomes more balanced. When your prayer life is strong, your moral choices become clearer. When your prayer life is steady, your ability to resist temptation increases. When your prayer life becomes a habit, your heart becomes less vulnerable to the things that used to pull you down. Life will always demand things from you. Stress will always try to crowd out the quiet spaces of your soul. Responsibilities will always fight for your time. But if prayer becomes your habit, your anchor, then no matter how chaotic life gets, you will always find your way back to God. Because the path is familiar, your heart knows it, your soul is trained to return, and it's okay if your prayers are not always perfect or focused or spiritually overwhelming. What matters is that you keep showing up. Consistency brings sincerity. Sincerity brings closeness. Closeness brings change. Build your life on habits that lift you, not habits that drain you. Protect the small acts of worship, because they build the greatest transformations. Guard the daily rhythm of prayer because it shapes the person you are becoming. And remember, what you do every day determines the direction of your soul. So choose the habits that will lead you back to God. When we say guard your prayer life, we're not talking about a casual reminder or a light suggestion. We're talking about something that your entire future depends on. Because prayer is not just one part of your life. It is the foundation that holds everything else together. And when the foundation weakens, the whole structure begins to shake, even if you don't notice it right away. Guarding your prayer means understanding its worth, protecting its place, and treating it as the precious lifeline that it is. The truth is, the world you live in will never make prayer easy for you. Everything around you, your schedule, your responsibilities, your stresses, your habits, your technology, your environment, is pulling you away from stillness, away from focus, away from sincerity. If you do not guard your prayer intentionally, it will slip away quietly. It won't disappear with a loud announcement. It will fade slowly, subtly, gently, until the day you look back and wonder where the closeness you once felt went, where the discipline you once had went, where the peace you used to carry disappeared too. Guarding your prayer means setting boundaries not because God needs them, but because your heart needs them. It means creating pockets of sacred time in a world that constantly tries to invade every moment. It means choosing again and again that your connection with your Lord comes before the noise of the world, before the demands of people, before the distractions that drain your soul. Guarding your prayer means fighting for it, because everything else is fighting to replace it. You have to recognize that prayer is not something small. It is not something you can afford to lose. Prayer is the one place where you meet the one who understands you more deeply than anyone else. It is the one moment in your day when you are reminded of who you truly are. It is the act that anchors your identity, shapes your character, and protects your soul. A person who guards their prayer guards their entire spiritual life, and a person who neglects their prayer finds that neglect leaking into every other part of their existence. Think about how many people today feel lost, even though they are surrounded by opportunities. They feel empty, even though they are constantly entertained. They feel anxious, even though they have more comfort than any generation before them. The problem is not lack of resources, it's lack of grounding. When prayer slips, grounding slips. When grounding slips, everything starts to shake. Guarding your prayer means protecting that grounding so the storms of life cannot uproot you. And guarding your prayer is not just about the outward performance. It's about the inner quality. You can pray with your limbs while your heart is miles away. You can go through the motions while your thoughts are scattered. Guarding your prayer means guarding your presence in the prayer, guarding your focus, guarding your reverence, guarding the sincerity that makes a prayer alive instead of hollow. This doesn't come automatically. It has to be cultivated, protected, guarded from the distractions that try to steal it. There will always be things trying to pull you away. There will always be excuses whispering in your mind. You're tired, you'll pray later. You have too much to do, you're not spiritual enough. These whispers are subtle, but they are dangerous. They don't push you to abandon prayer, they simply push you to delay it. And delay is often the first step toward neglect. That is why guarding your prayer means responding to those whispers with discipline. It means praying even when you don't feel ready, praying even when you're rushed, praying even when you're emotionally drained. Because if you wait for the perfect conditions, you will pray less and less until eventually you stop noticing the absence. But when you guard prayer, everything else expands, your peace expands, your clarity expands, your ability to withstand hardship expands, your patience, your strength, your sense of direction. All of it grows when your connection with God is protected and nourished. A guarded prayer life becomes a protective wall around your heart. It becomes a refuge you return to when life overwhelms you. It becomes the source of resilience that helps you endure the storms that would break someone else. Guarding your prayer also means guarding the environment around your prayer. It means removing the things that pull you away from stillness. It means doing what you can to prepare your heart, even in small ways. It means creating moments of calm before rushing into prayer from chaos. It means being mindful of the influences that numb your ability to feel the sweetness of worship. The world around you will push you toward distraction, but you have to push back by creating a space, internal and external, where your prayer can live, breathe, and grow. And the beautiful thing is, the more you guard prayer, the more prayer will guard you. It will guard your heart from despair, guard your mind from confusion, guard your morals from decline, guard your soul from emptiness. Prayer protects you in ways you will never fully understand, from things you will never fully see. You guard it so that it can guard you. This is why, in the end, guarding your prayer is really guarding your future, guarding your peace, guarding your faith, guarding the person you are becoming. The world will constantly try to take your attention, but you choose what you protect. And if you choose to protect your prayer, everything else in your life will find its rightful place. Because when you guard your prayer, you are guarding the doorway to God. And there is no door more valuable, more life-giving, or more worthy of protection than that one.